A black woman was denied boarding first class until she made a call that shut down the entire airline. They say a single phone call can change everything. And for Naomi Bennett, an ambitious, confident, and fiercely determined woman, that one call turned a humiliating nightmare into a stunning comeback that shook the airline industry. The staff at AeroSky Airlines had no idea that denying Naomi her rightful first-class privileges would not only ruin her trip, but would also trigger an explosion of corruption scandals stretching from the flight deck to the executive offices, drawing in CEOs, powerful lawyers, and the national media. Fasten your seatbelts, because this is going to be an unforgettable ride. Naomi Bennett woke up that morning with a clear sense that today would mark a turning point in her life. Before the sun had even risen above the Chicago skyline, she had already showered, dressed, and was pacing around her small downtown apartment. The hustle and bustle of the city drifted through the window, reminding Naomi that she lived in a constant flow of ambition and effort. As a senior project manager at a rapidly growing tech company recently featured on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, Naomi was used to being the only woman of color in the boardroom. But instead of letting that discourage her, she used it as motivation to push further. Her flight to San Francisco had been meticulously planned. She had meetings lined up with major investors, a partnership signing with a startup alliance, and an invitation to appear on a tech podcast. This wasn't just a business trip. It was Naomi's stepping stone to a bigger stage. To be worthy of the opportunities awaiting her, Naomi booked a first-class ticket on AeroSky Airlines, an airline she had trusted for many years. She did everything by the book, booked directly through the airline's website, confirmed her seat, and upgraded to first class using her accumulated bonus miles from countless prior flights. Naomi, well accustomed to silent judgments, always maintained a calm but unshakable demeanor. Standing at 5'10" tall, she exuded confidence, from her majestic posture to her sharp, bright eyes. Many people had described Naomi as unapproachable, but she understood that it was simply because she had never bowed to adversity. That indomitable spirit was something she inherited from her late father, a renowned human rights attorney who had spent his life fighting against discrimination. Every time Naomi entered a room, she carried with her the valuable lessons her father had taught. Be proud, be prepared, and never be afraid to speak up for what's right. That morning, despite her determination, Naomi felt an unusual restlessness. She told herself it was simply the pressure of today's important work. A glance at her phone showed the time. 5:45 a.m. Her flight was scheduled to take off at 9 a.m. from O'Hare International Airport. It was time to go. She called a taxi, double-checked her backpack and paperwork, then headed downstairs to the shiny black sedan waiting for her. She sank into the car seat, taking in deep breaths of the fresh morning air, unaware that today would test her patience and dignity more than anything she had ever faced before. When Naomi arrived at O'Hare International Airport, she joined the bustling crowd moving like a waterfall. She had arrived 2 hours early, more than enough time to check in and breeze through security, one of the great perks of flying first class. With a suitcase in one hand and a garment bag in the other, Naomi briskly walked through the marble hallways toward AeroSky Airlines' exclusive first-class check-in counter. "Good morning," Naomi greeted politely as she approached the counter, where a sleek-looking woman whose name tag read Megan stood. Naomi placed her ID and ticket confirmation on the counter. "I'm here to check in for my first-class flight to San Francisco." Megan glanced over Naomi's documents with apparent indifference. The sluggishness in her movements and the slight annoyance flickering in her eyes sent a faint prickle of unease through Naomi. There was something about Megan's demeanor that reminded Naomi of past instances of being treated unfairly, but she kept her polite smile intact, refusing to jump to conclusions. "Is this your ticket?" Megan asked, raising an eyebrow with a skeptical tone. "I don't see you listed as first class." A flash of confusion crossed Naomi's mind. She suppressed her irritation and calmly pushed her phone forward. I have the confirmation email right here, Naomi said, maintaining her calm. I upgraded to first class 2 weeks ago. My seat number is 2A. Megan picked up Naomi's phone, her long fingernails clicking sharply against the screen. That's strange, she muttered, making no attempt to hide her doubt. The steady tapping of keys echoed as Megan typed Naomi's information into the system, while Naomi stood silently, feeling the seconds stretch into what felt like an eternity. Finally, Megan shook her head, her voice cold. According to the system, you only have an economy seat, number 28C. Naomi's face stiffened slightly, but she kept her tone composed. With all due respect, she said, that information is incorrect. I used my award miles to upgrade. I have official confirmation for seat 2A. Megan exhaled heavily, as if tired of dealing with complaints. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett, but there's no upgrade recorded in the system. If you'd like, we can put you in seat 28C. First class is currently full. Naomi gripped her phone a little tighter, but maintained her composure. She reopened the official confirmation email from AeroSky, clearly showing, confirmed upgrade to first class, seat 2A. This is not a mistake on my part, Naomi said, bringing the screen closer to Megan. Megan's face remained icy cold. I can't assist you further, ma'am. If you have any complaints, you can speak with a supervisor or call customer service. An electric jolt of injustice ran down Naomi's spine. She had been a loyal AeroSky customer for years, spending countless amounts on business travel, and today it all suddenly felt meaningless. Recalling her father's teachings, Naomi took a deep breath, refusing to let her emotions cloud her reasoning. Then please let me speak to the manager, Naomi requested calmly. Megan rolled her eyes in annoyance and picked up the landline. Manager to the counter, she said curtly, shooting Naomi a dismissive look as if she were an inconvenience. The day was rapidly turning into a nightmare Naomi had never anticipated. But instead of breaking down, a new fire ignited inside her. She had worked hard for that seat. She refused to be treated like a second-class passenger. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man approached, his face marked with impatience. His name tag read Simon. As Megan gestured toward Naomi, Simon grimaced, as if he had already pegged her as a problem passenger. What's going on? Simon asked, trying to sound professional, but failing to hide his irritation. Naomi, still holding her phone open to the email, calmly presented it to him. I upgraded my ticket to first class a few weeks ago. I have official confirmation from AeroSky, but now I'm being told only economy seats are available. I need clarification. Simon glanced at Megan. Have you checked thoroughly? Megan shrugged. I checked. The system only shows seat 28C. Simon began entering Naomi's information into the computer, his brow furrowing as he stared at the screen. After a few moments of tapping at the keyboard, he looked up. According to the system, you only have an economy seat, Simon said dryly. You can either accept seat 28C or we can help you rebook on another flight. But first class is fully booked for this one. Naomi's fingers tightened around her phone. But I have clear confirmation, she insisted, locking eyes with Simon. Ticket, email, everything is valid. I have the right to seat 2A. Simon responded with a weary look, as if Naomi were wasting his time. We apologize for the inconvenience, he said flatly. Sometimes the system glitches. The best solution is for you to board with seat 28C, and later we can sort out the bonus miles or the fare difference. He shrugged lightly, adding, You just get on the plane first, and we'll figure out the rest afterward. But for Naomi, this was never just about a seat. It was about respect, for her money, for her time, and above all, for her dignity. That familiar sting of injustice rose sharply inside her. Naomi glanced from Megan to Simon, catching the uneasy indifference on both their faces, as if they were used to brushing off legitimate complaints. She understood clearly. This wasn't just a simple system error. Feeling the tension mount, Naomi spoke, her voice soft but firm. Is it possible that my seat was given to someone else? Her question startled both Megan and Simon. They exchanged a quick glance, enough for Naomi, ever alert to subtleties, to notice. No, absolutely not, Simon replied hastily. Too hastily to be convincing. Look, Ms. Bennett, he continued, we're short-staffed, and sometimes the system glitches. It happens more often than you'd think. Your options are either accept economy class for this flight or wait for another flight if you insist on first class. But I'm telling you, there are no more first-class seats available. Simon's tone carried a veiled threat, as if offering her a favor she was about to squander. Naomi inhaled slowly and exhaled deeply to maintain her composure. I'll wait, Naomi said firmly. I want to speak with someone higher up, or have direct contact with the executive office. This is unacceptable. Simon pressed his lips into a thin line of tension. As you wish, he said mockingly, deliberately raising his voice as he commanded Megan, clearly trying to embarrass Naomi in front of the gathering crowd. Find someone higher up to help Miss Bennett, since she insists on blocking the line. The surrounding passengers began to turn their heads toward Naomi, curious. There were looks of sympathy, annoyance, and even some of quiet support. But Naomi refused to be shamed. In her mind echoed her father's timeless words, never cower, never apologize for demanding justice. Naomi held her head high and waited patiently. Little did she know, this was merely the prelude to a fierce battle that would test her patience, faith, and sense of justice to their limits. The crowd at the airport grew thicker. People looked at Naomi with all kinds of expressions, some sympathetic, others annoyed at the delay. She was painfully aware that she stood there as a lone black woman, daring to challenge airline staff simply to claim her rightful seat. And she vowed she would not back down. After what felt like an eternity, a woman in a navy suit approached. The name tag on her chest read, Isabella, floor manager. Isabella offered a faint, polite smile as she neared Naomi. Good morning, Ms. Bennett. I'm Isabella, the manager here. How may I assist you? Naomi, tired of repeating herself, patiently explained the situation again, showing Isabella the upgrade confirmation email as proof. Isabella frowned slightly as she compared the data on Naomi's phone with the internal system. This is a strange case, Isabella said, her voice softer and more professional than Simon's. Our system does show a first-class booking under your name, but the current seat status indicates it's no longer available, as if it was overwritten. Naomi immediately picked up on the word overwritten. What do you mean? Overwritten how? She asked, keeping her voice calm despite the turmoil inside. Isabella sighed. Sometimes, she explained, if a VIP or internal staff member requires a seat, the system can override an existing reservation without notifying the passenger. Typically, that requires approval from a higher authority. But honestly, this situation is beyond my authority to investigate at the moment. Naomi listened, her heart growing heavier. Once again, she realized she was just a casualty in an internal game of favoritism. So does this mean I have to accept being downgraded to economy? Naomi asked, her frustration creeping into her voice. Isabella glanced around, noticing the lingering stares from the crowd. Ms. Bennett, let's move to a private area to discuss this further, Isabella suggested, gesturing toward a quieter corner beside the counter. Naomi nodded and followed her, relieved to move away from the center of attention. As they walked, Naomi caught a bored, slightly mocking exchange of looks between Megan and Simon. But inside her, the determination had only grown stronger. She would not back down. Once they reached a quieter spot, Isabella lowered her voice, her eyes showing a hint of sympathy. We have a policy that if a passenger presents valid documentation confirming a top-class seat, the airline must honor it, Isabella said carefully. However, reservations can only be honored if the seat hasn't been claimed by another passenger. Let me check the current status of seat 2A. Naomi clutched her phone tighter, her heart pounding. Please check for me, she whispered, almost pleading. Isabella picked up her walkie-talkie and quietly requested another staff member to check the status of seat 2A. The static-filled replies and clicking noises through the walkie-talkie made each second stretch unbearably long. After a few minutes, Isabella's face darkened. She turned back to Naomi, her eyes filled with regret. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett, Isabella said softly. Seat 2A has already been claimed by another passenger. A Mr. Greenfield checked in about 20 minutes ago, and at this moment, first class is completely full. The polite apology did nothing to quell the fire burning inside Naomi. Who is Mr. Greenfield? Naomi asked, unable to hide her indignation. Is he some VIP or someone connected to the company? Isabella hesitated before clearing her throat. To be honest, I'm not allowed to disclose passengers' personal information, she explained. But based on certain flags in the system, it appears he has high-level connections within the airline. Those words cut deep into Naomi's pride. Now she understood. This wasn't some random technical glitch. She was up against a system of favoritism and privilege, where the powerful could easily shove others aside without apology. And yet, alongside her burning anger, Naomi also realized another truth. She was not alone. She had friends, colleagues, and most importantly, her own unwavering voice, her sharpest weapon. As Naomi was about to ask more questions, Isabella's shoulder radio buzzed urgently, requesting her immediate return to the main counter due to the increasing crowd. Isabella looked at Naomi apologetically. I have to get back, she said. I truly wish I could be of more help. Naomi suppressed a sigh and nodded. Thank you, Isabella. At least you were honest with me. Isabella gave a strained smile and disappeared into the crowd. Naomi stood there, a storm of emotions swirling within her. Hurt, anger, and yet an emerging, unstoppable strength. She could almost hear her father's voice echoing in her mind. Sometimes you have to stand up, so those behind you won't have to fight alone. Naomi knew she could not let this injustice pass in silence. She found a secluded spot near the vending machines and sat down, her phone in her hand like a lifeline, amid the storm of emotions surging within her. Without hesitation, she dialed the number of the person she trusted most, Olivia Carter. Olivia was Naomi's best friend from college, now a sharp, formidable corporate lawyer based in Boston. Olivia had helped Naomi navigate many workplace legal battles, cases where Naomi might have otherwise been crushed without legal support. The phone rang twice before Olivia answered, her voice brisk but tinged with concern. Hey, Naomi, I'm about to head into a meeting. What's going on? Without wasting a second, Naomi poured out everything, from the stolen first-class seat, to the cold indifference from the counter staff, to the blatant override for a VIP passenger. Olivia was silent for a few moments after hearing the story. Then her voice dropped to a serious, low tone. This is a clear violation, she said firmly. You cannot demote a ticketed passenger to economy like that, especially without notice. Have you spoken to anyone higher than the floor manager? Not yet, Naomi said, her voice heavy. The flight is in less than an hour. I'm worried if I push too hard, they'll just cancel my ticket. Olivia thought for a moment. I could quickly draft a legal letter or email, but that might not be strong enough given the tight timeline. However, Olivia paused, her voice suddenly dropping lower. Remember, I have some contacts in the FAA's legal department. If necessary, I can send a message or make a direct call. Naomi tightened her grip on her phone. Are you sure? Olivia exhaled audibly. If you really want to fight this, I'm in. But Naomi, you should know. If we escalate this, it could get a lot more complicated than you imagine." Naomi looked around at the bustling terminal, passengers rushing to catch flights, oblivious to the battle brewing just steps away. "I want to do the right thing," Naomi said firmly. "This is blatant discrimination. I can't pretend I didn't see it." Olivia was silent for a beat, then her voice softened but remained steady. "Okay, I'll take care of it." "And Naomi," Olivia added, "gather all the evidence you can. Screenshots of the confirmation emails, photos, recordings if possible, and if there are witnesses, even better." Naomi nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude for her friend's unwavering support. Without wasting time, Naomi scrolled through her contacts, finding another important name: Sophie Wright. Sophie was an investigative reporter Naomi had met at a tech conference the previous year, a journalist with a fierce passion for exposing injustice. If Naomi needed someone to give this issue a voice in the media, Sophie was her first thought. She dialed Sophie's number. The phone rang for a long time, but no one picked up. Naomi left a brief but urgent voicemail summarizing the situation and asking Sophie to call back as soon as possible. After hanging up, Naomi glanced up at the flight information board. Time was running out. She had to decide: accept the injustice quietly or take a stand and risk missing her important meetings. But deep down, Naomi already knew the decision had been made long ago. Sitting alone in the corner of the waiting lounge, Naomi stared at her phone, her heart pounding. The choice before her was simple yet monumental: her immediate career or the principles she had been raised to uphold. Once again, she heard her late father's deep voice echoing, "Principles, daughter. If you don't hold on to them, they'll be swept away by the currents of life." Naomi inhaled deeply, clenching her fists tightly as if drawing strength from the very air around her. She stood up and walked back toward the AeroSky counter. Her eyes immediately spotted Simon and Megan chatting, looking tired and indifferent. As Naomi approached, Simon noticed her and sighed heavily, glancing at Megan with an expression that clearly said, "Here we go again." Naomi felt her chest tighten at their obvious disdain. But she kept her composure, the kind honed from years of facing silent prejudice. "I would like to speak to someone higher than the floor manager," Naomi stated clearly. "And I would also like direct contact information for the AeroSky Airlines operations office." Simon blinked in surprise, pausing for a beat. "Ms. Bennett, you are delaying the boarding process. Are you sure you want to handle this way?" Naomi crossed her arms over her chest, unwavering. "I'm sure. Now who's the next person I can escalate this to?" Simon hesitated, then silently turned and walked through a staff-only door. Now only Megan stood behind the counter, her gaze sharp as a blade. "You're really making things difficult for everyone here," Megan said, her voice dripping with irritation. Naomi narrowed her eyes, her lips curling ever so slightly. "Difficult for everyone? I paid for a valid first-class ticket, and it was taken from me for no reason. So tell me, hard for you or hard for me?" Megan pressed her lips together, then muttered under her breath, "You people always think you—" Naomi heard it, and the words slammed into her like a slap. "What do you mean by you people?" Naomi demanded, her voice low but trembling with rage. Megan's face went pale. I meant passengers. Passengers who demand special treatment." Naomi's heart pounded in her ears. She turned away before her fury could spill out uncontrollably. "Enough," she whispered, not sparing Megan another glance. The tension was palpable. Several nearby passengers turned to look, some clearly sympathetic, others merely curious. A few minutes later, Simon returned, this time accompanied by a tall, middle-aged man in a crisp suit whose name tag read Nathan, Deputy Director of Operations. Naomi recognized him vaguely from previous flights but had never spoken to him. "Ms. Bennett," Nathan greeted her, his voice falsely cheerful. "I'm Nathan. I understand you had an issue with your first-class seating?" Naomi stood tall, clutching her handbag tightly. "It's not that I think I had a seat," she said coldly. "I have confirmed documentation." Nathan nodded, his eyes betraying a flicker of unease. "I understand. Unfortunately, seat 2A has been taken by another passenger. The plane is full, and we cannot remove someone from their seat." Naomi bit the inside of her cheek to stay composed. "I never asked you to remove anyone. I'm asking for the company to honor the seat I paid for." Nathan exhaled, raising his hands in a helpless gesture. "We can offer you seat 28C in economy, or rebook you on another flight with first-class availability tomorrow. We'll even cover a hotel stay if needed." Naomi's heart twisted painfully. She had critical meetings scheduled in San Francisco. Delaying by even a day would cost her dearly. "Hotel?" Naomi repeated bitterly. "You think a hotel voucher makes up for stealing my seat?" Nathan frowned. "Ms. Bennett, please refrain from using words like stealing." This was a system glitch. More passengers had gathered nearby, sensing the rising tension. Naomi's heart beat like a war drum. She remembered her father's teachings. Never let anyone decide your worth for you. She lifted her chin. "I want to speak directly with someone from the executive office," she said firmly. "I've also called my lawyer. From now on, all communications will go through her." Nathan's posture stiffened instantly at the mention of legal action. "That is your right, Ms. Bennett," he said curtly. "But if you do not accept the current offer, you will not be permitted to board this flight." Naomi stared him down, her voice low but brimming with iron resolve. "I understand. Believe me, I understand perfectly." At that moment, Naomi made her final decision. She would not board that flight. Not as an economy-class afterthought, and certainly not as someone who quietly swallowed injustice. She was prepared to miss her meetings, delay her career, whatever it took, because this fight was no longer just about her. Naomi stood silently for a long moment, watching the line of passengers filing through the boarding gate for Flight 172 to San Francisco. A sharp pang of regret twisted in her chest. She should have been one of them, settled comfortably in seat 2A, sipping her pre-flight drink, preparing her notes for today's meetings. Instead, Naomi stood apart, arms crossed tightly over her chest, as though shielding herself from the cold indifference radiating from the counter. Her phone suddenly buzzed in her hand. It was a text message from Olivia. "I made the call. FAA contacts will be in touch soon." "Hang tight." Naomi let out a slow breath, feeling a renewed surge of confidence. She knew that if any federal agency took allegations of airline discrimination seriously, it was the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Although AeroSky would likely dismiss this as a simple system error, Naomi knew the signs pointed to something far more sinister. Just as the boarding gate closed, Naomi's phone rang again. The name flashing on the screen made her heart leap. Sophie Wright. Naomi hurriedly walked away from the gate area and answered, her heart pounding. "I'm here," Naomi said quickly. Sophie's voice came through, brisk and clear. "Got your voicemail. Give me a quick rundown." Naomi wasted no time, succinctly recounting everything: the confirmed seat override, Megan's barely veiled racial insult, the systematic coldness from the staff, and the suspicious disappearance of her first-class seat. Sophie was silent for a few seconds, then said firmly, "I can smell systemic discrimination from a mile away. Are you sure you have enough documentation?" "I have everything," Naomi replied. "Confirmation emails, receipts, screenshots. I've saved it all." Sophie thought for a moment. "Good. Let me get moving on this. I'll write something up, maybe a quick article or at least a social media post, and see if others have experienced the same thing. Stay strong, Naomi, and whatever you do, Don't let them silence you. Naomi thanked Sophie, feeling slightly buoyed by her reporter friend's support. She was no longer standing alone. An invisible network was forming around her. Friends, allies, strangers who cared about justice. Naomi opened her email app and began reviewing her San Francisco itinerary. The painful reality hit her hard. She had to cancel or reschedule most of her meetings. Some partners were sympathetic, but Naomi knew. Missed opportunities in business rarely got second chances. The price of standing your ground, Naomi thought bitterly, gritting her teeth to fight back a surge of frustration. As she passed the boarding gate area again, she caught sight of Megan, still busy behind the counter. For a brief moment, Naomi felt the urge to confront her, to force Megan to admit what she had said earlier. But then Olivia's advice echoed in her mind. Don't corner them. Let them make their own mistakes. This battle wasn't just against a rude counteragent. The real fight was against the faceless system behind her, the one that made it easy to trample loyal passengers like her without consequence. Naomi walked past silently, not